Hi, students. So I'm going to give you some feedback on Dark They Were and Golden Eyed Worksheet 1. And basically, I'm going to tell you and show you what you did right and what you did well and what you're doing in your own writing. And then I'm going to give you all of my answers so that you can use those to compare with what you did on this assignment. And then you'll have the opportunity to reflect on your writing. So let's get started first with the first page. It was included in here so that you guys can refer to it. The definitions of a simile, a metaphor, and a personification, just in case you want to make sure that you're completing the assignments correctly. Look at the next page. It has the chart, and basically you were supposed to read each passage and then determine if it's what type of figurative language it is, and then explain your answers. So if we look at the first example, I'm going to show you this one. The children's small seeds might, at any instant, be sown to all the Martian climes. This is an example of a metaphor, and this is my explanation. This is a metaphor because the author is comparing the children to small seeds without using the words like or as. A metaphor compares two things by saying that one is the other. And then if we move to the next example, they saw the old cities lying like children's delicate bones among the blowing lakes of grass. This is a simile. And how I know it's a simile is because the author is comparing the old cities with the children's delicate bones, using the word like. A simile compares two things using the words like or as. So I'm explaining my thinking here, how I know that what the figurative language is, why I chose that type of figurative language. And the last example on the chart, this was the moment Mars had waited for. Now it would eat them. This is clearly an example of personification. So if I look over here and move this a little bit, I can see that here's my explanation. This is an example of personification because the author is giving Mars human characteristics by saying that Mars is waiting and that it would eat. Objects don't actually wait or eat, but people do. Moving on to the next assignment. Number 2 asks, rewrite a simile that you identified in the chart as a metaphor. So you have to go back to the chart, reread the simile that you marked as a simile, and make it into a metaphor. So this one says, they saw the old cities lying like children's delicate bones among the blowing lakes of grass. So we used like or as, we used like. So now I have to make it into a metaphor. So I wrote, and we know that metaphors compare two things, telling what it is. So the old cities were children's delicate bones among the blowing lakes of grass. Now it's a metaphor. It shows my understanding of simile and metaphor. I'm able to identify a simile in the chart, and then I'm able to turn it into a metaphor. Number 3 asks, write a sentence in which you personify the blowing wind that is described throughout the story. Personify is the verb form of personification. So, the blowing wind. Here's my first example. The wind charged toward Mars and fought with everything it had. Only humans can charge and fight, not wind. And the second example, the wind wanted to erase everything off of the face of Mars. Another example of personification because winds don't want nor do they erase things. We do. Moving on to the next slide. I basically, with this question, wanted to just know your thinking and see what you what your answer might be about Mars. So the question asks, if you had the chance to go to Mars, would you? Would you go? Why or why not? So in this first sentence, it reads, if I had the chance to go to Mars, I would personally not go unless the Earth was dying and would not last me a lifetime. So clearly, this is incorporating the question into your answer and answering it. So it lets me know as a reader what the question is and what the answer is clearly. And then all throughout my answer, I explain everything clearly. I have periods at the end of my sentences. I begin, especially the lowercase I or any letter of a new sentence with a capital letter. I know where my thinking goes. So I start off with explaining my answer. Everything I need is on earth. My family, my friends, my pets, my favorite restaurants, my favorite places, the list goes on. And then explains the feelings. And then there's this last sentence where it states, I feel as though we should research and learn about our own planet before we start a new adventure elsewhere. It's not that you need to write like a suggestion or anything, but it's a nice concluding sentence. This shows me mastery of the content, that this person obviously listened to the audiobook, is able to identify similes and metaphors. So they might have they were listening to the presentation that I made. They're able to change metaphors, write their own personification, change similes to metaphors. They're always obviously able to write their own personification examples, and then they're clearly able to share their opinion or feelings based on this question. Moving on to the movie poster. This will also show you mastery of the content. I wanted to make something a little more creative for all those creative people out there, and even for the people like me that it really inspires me to be creative. So you were to imagine that a famous movie director decided to adapt Dark They Were and Golden Eyed into a movie. You've been hired to create a movie poster that captures the mood that Ray Bradbury intended for readers to experience. So your movie poster should include the following: the title and the author of the work, visual images. You can go to Google images and you could have typed in Mars, Dark They Were and Golden Eyed, Martian people, or things on Mars, all different types of things to help you with the visual images. And then you also need a text. You needed a text, like a slogan or tagline that captures the audience interest and imagination. And I gave bonus points if you could if you could make your slogan using figurative language. And then this is an example of a famed movie poster of the movie Footloose. You can see that this guy is obviously dancing, listening to music, and you see the town in the background. And the title of the work of the movie, and then here's the slogan. He's a big city kid in a small town. They say he'd never win. He knew he had to. So that makes you want to, that really interests you if you ever saw this at the movie theater, like, wow, this looks like a good movie to see. So that's what I was looking for with your Dark They Were and Golden Eyed, your creativity. If you look at the example, you shall see that here is the example. You have, excuse me, technical difficulties here. You have the title, Dark They Were and Golden Eye by Ray Bradbury. And then the graphic shows an eye with gold, a golden eye. And in the iris, the center of the eye, you see the people. It's a little bit larger image. So dark they were and golden eyed. And then I want you to read this example. Zoom out. When on Mars, beware it has hands that will be used to hold you hostage and change you from the inside out. This is an example. Did you recognize it? This is a slogan using personification. Mars, beware. Hands that will hold you hostage. Of course, a planet doesn't have hands and it cannot hold you hostage, and it cannot change you from the inside out. So very creatively done. This shows mastery of even the most creative idea of making a movie poster. So hopefully you guys can take my answers, look at yours, see how well you did and compare it, and then make some changes so that you guys, basically you're going to reflect on this, and then hopefully you can, um, maybe make some changes on yours. I've already, put this into the grade book, but I want you to be able to learn from this. So anyway, hope this helped. Have a great day.